I'm Erica Lukes, host of UFO Classified. For me, life isn't simply black and white. Life is full of many unknowns. It is my goal to travel the world and to work with the world's leading experts in the hopes of making groundbreaking discoveries. Join me on UFO Classified Friday nights at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, only on KCOR. Holiday weekend. I hope you and your family and loved ones are all safe and sound, and I hope you enjoy the weekend. I know I am going to, even though I might lock myself in the closet, I'm not quite sure, but we'll see what happens. You just never know. Things are getting a little crazy here in Utah, and I'm sure that they will continue to get a little bit worse with each passing day, so we will see how things play out, but I wish all of you the best. Please stay safe and healthy. I wanted to, before I bring on my incredible guest tonight, I wanted to just put something out there because we've had a lot of stuff taking place with the Wilson documents and some of these things, and we had a very interesting show that caused a lot of, it caused a little ruckus among a few people, and I want to just say that it's interesting with the Wilson documents specifically. I was contacted a little over a year ago by an Australian researcher, James Rigney, who gave me the documents. I had those, and he gave them to a small number of other people, and at that point in time I decided, for me, since my area of focus was on something else, that I did not want to put something out there and forward if I didn't really have the backstory, which I did not. And I have to say that I'm very happy I made that decision. We'll let other people run with that and see where it takes them, but I just wanted to put that out there. So there you have that. I also want to say that, you know, right now, this subject, and you hear me say this a lot, this subject is really in a pivotal time. And we have a lot of people who are older, who have done 50 years of work, who are passing away. And right now, the story, the narrative is getting changed. And this is very concerning. People's work is being bought up by organizations like MUFON. It is being thrown into a dark dungeon where it will never see the light of day. And history, I promise you, it is being rewritten. And so now we've got this threat narrative that we're pushing forward, and I want to just encourage each and every one of you to look a little bit deeper, to look away from ufology, and to look at some of the people who have been in this for a long, long time, who, interestingly enough, have ties to the defense and aerospace world. So what would their motivations be? Could it perhaps, look at this solicitation sheet for OSAP? My point is, you need to look outside. You need to look at money. You need to look at religious ideologies. You need to look at politics. You need to see who the person is surrounding themselves with. And in the case of MUFON, we see an organization that 50 years later has really amounted to nothing other than taking really incredible people's money and distracting people from finding the truth. So there's my little thoughts for the day. I just wanted to let you know that. I know my listeners are incredibly smart and thoughtful people, and you will do your due diligence and make sure you don't fall down a rabbit hole that was purposefully created to distract and to really take our personal power away. So with that, speaking of personal power, I want to introduce my guest tonight, who is an incredible human being. I remember sitting at a diner in Nevada having a great conversation with her, and I knew the second I met her that she was somebody that I could be friends with for the rest of my life, because she is kind, empathetic, intelligent, funny. I really think the world of her. Karyn Dolan hosted Through the Keyhole, which is was a podcast on Paranormal Radio Network from 2007 to 2012. During that time, she interviewed many researchers and authors in the field of ufology and the paranormal. This led to her serving on the board of directors of the International UFO Congress in Laughlin and to appearances at conferences across the United States. Personal experiences in her life, such as divorce, the death of a family member, the diagnosis of cancer, led her to search out new ways of getting through stressful times and building a new and better life coming out of the ashes. She now shares with others what she's learned and feels strongly about the importance of a community of living with integrity. And I couldn't agree more. I think that is such a beautiful statement. And Karyn, thank you so much. This is like a breath of fresh air. I cannot tell you how excited I am to have you.
Oh, Erica, thank you so much. I can't tell you how happy I am to be here. And, living on opposite sides of the country, we do not get to see each other or to talk nearly as often as I would like to. And I am just completely thrilled to be here. And thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. That was so sweet.
Well, no, I mean, it's, wow. There are people that you meet and you just know that you connect, and you're one of those people. And I've seen you over the years really act with a lot of integrity and courage. And I admire that a lot. And I think that we have a younger generation of women who are coming into this subject. And if they turn to the wrong places, they're not necessarily going to find the best information. And we know how this field is. It can kind of eat you up and spit you out. And I know that you don't want that to happen. And I know I don't want that to happen either, because this is important work. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And you're absolutely right. This is very important work. And, in listening to your introduction to the show, I was really struck by some of your words about what's actually happening. You're absolutely right. A lot of research has been done, but the data that's being collected is not available to the public. We're not moving forward. People are finding things, they're learning information, but then it just gets locked away. And
I know. And I mean, it is such a sad thing to me. And I have, the fortune of having people like Barry Greenwood as my mentor, and Gordon Lohr and Jen Aldrich. And those are the real historians in the field. And we talk several times a week and talk about how, this organization is trying to swoop up collections. And we saw that with Bigelow when he went out and bought every collection he could get his hands on. And it's like the data is disappearing. And that is really alarming. It really should be put forward to the public so other researchers can move forward with their work. And I don't get it.
Yeah, it really seems like when new people are coming into the field, they're still starting with the old, are there lights in the sky behaving in ways that we can't explain? And, okay, every year, conventional aircraft is able to do more and more, but we still can't do what all these lights in the sky are doing. But we shouldn't have to go over that hurdle again every time. I mean, that should be really, really introductory stuff. And people should be able to move past it very quickly, but we don't. I mean, there are an awful lot of people who still don't believe that there are such things as UFOs, even in light of the fact that official statements have come out from the government within the past couple of months, essentially saying, yep, they're real. Yep, we've accepted it. We've been collecting information on it. Oh, by the way, I know you don't have time to think about this because of the coronavirus and everything, but this should not be something that we are still stuck on.
And when you see like the MJ-12 documents again, like coming to the light of day and things, and I mean, what are your thoughts about that?
It's a little difficult for me to answer some of these because I have been out of the field for quite a while. Mostly, I stay in touch with a couple of people on Facebook, so I see things go by. I know like what people are talking about, but I don't necessarily look into cases like. I remember when the MJ-12 documents came out, and we were all talking about them. I don't know, 20 years ago. Is that far back? Yeah, probably. Because my kids are both in their 20s now, and I got into it about the time they were born. Um, and I mean, it seemed at the time there was really good evidence for those documents to be real, I thought. So I don't know what the current, um, have they been disproven again? I mean, there are people who believe they've disproven them, and people believe they've proven them.
Yeah, it's interesting. And first of all, I have to say, good for you for stepping back because
Well,
there is more to life. But
I was kind of able to, and I kind of had to. So
yeah, no, I mean, and that's good. I think it can really burn you out, and sometimes it can be very disruptive, to your life and family and different things. And I think that's a good thing to do. And it is funny with the MJ-12 documents because we've got this new old document that's come out, and it's again been pretty heavily scrutinized by people that are really good in the field, and there are definite questions about it. But it's kind of goes to the bigger question. I mean, does it, because we are, like you say, we are reinventing things when we don't have to. We should have learned these lessons in the past, and we should be moving beyond that. But it's interesting to see how these old narratives keep popping back up, and how a new group of people is just willing to believe things without doing their due diligence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, since I've left the field, I've been doing a lot of other things. I went back to work. I went back to college. I've been meeting a lot of other people, and I'm kind of hesitant about telling people what I did all those years, going to conferences and, I don't know, serving on the board of directors of the UFO Congress. That's, I mean, in some groups of people, that's a really cool thing to talk about and to say, hey, that's a neat thing on my resume. Other groups, I don't really want to bring that up.
It has been very interesting for me, as a businesswoman here in Utah, a very conservative state, to try to go there. It took me quite a while to figure out how to do that without people thinking, okay, she's completely lost her lid. But, I always look at what they've done over in Norway and different parts of the world where they're looking at the subject seriously. And I think that definitely helps. But here in America, it's just this clown show. And that's really unfortunate because that diminishes the work of a lot of people.
It really does. We have so many really excellent people in this country and really, I mean, around the world. But when we talk about MUFON taking the results of investigations and essentially locking it away or putting it behind a paywall that I've been hearing just lately, that's what's happening. Now people have to pay for their membership in order to access the results of previous investigations. That's what somebody said. And, on the one hand, okay, fair enough. They're an organization. They get to do what they want, I guess, set up their own structure. But it just seems like that's not the point. I mean, there are all these really terrific people in the state MUFON groups who are working really hard. They're working day jobs, and they're essentially working full-time, getting the training they need to do these investigations. They're paying for equipment. They're paying to travel to go and perform the investigations themselves. They're writing up the reports. This stuff takes time. And it takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of training, which they're doing. They're putting all of this into it because they love the field and because they really want to know what's going on. And then they send their information into the main office like they're supposed to, and then nothing ever happens. Nobody ever sees it again. And it's not, as far as I know, they don't get reimbursed for any of the money they put in to buy equipment or to travel, or I don't know what expenses are involved in the investigation because I don't do that.
One thing that really struck me when I was at MUFON headquarters in California a few years ago is the fact that when you go there, I mean, you've got the Len Stringfield files that are locked up tighter than a drum that they supposedly were scanning and going to be making them available, which has never happened. And then there was no real equipment. There was nothing to do anything, but there were, rows and rows of T-shirts and hats and MUFON bags.
Yeah. Oh, and the conferences are really, boy, those are first-rate parties. I mean, they get really nice hotels. I mean, I've been to a lot of MUFON international conferences, the symposium in the summer. Not lately, but I used to go to a lot of them. I've worked at a few. And yeah, those are top-notch. Great hotel, great food, great party, bring in entertainment. I've heard rumors that people get paid very well for that. I don't know.
They do.
It just seems like the people who are like the state directors and the state investigators, it always seemed to me that they don't get enough back for the amount of work that they put in.
They don't. And I mean, it really is a labor of love, I think, for a majority of us. And unfortunately, there are a handful of people that, use this as an opportunity to make a six-figure sum for themselves. Jan Harzan, you've got people that are from different, you've got different chapters. And when you look into the different chapters, it's always been very interesting to me to see they should be set up as a nonprofit, but some of the chapters don't do that, and they're directly taking that money without paying taxes for it. There are a lot of interesting things that take place, and then you've got MUFON Orange County, which seems to make a lot of money, and so there are questions. There are a lot of questions that should be asked, and I think you and I both care a lot about people involved in it, and there are amazing people. I will be friends with them until the day I die, because they're just good. They're like, we all get into this because we have that sense of wonder, and we want to know, and then we find, or we think we find, a community of like-minded people, and it really is, it turns into a social club, and that's great. We all need our social clubs, but then people don't have high enough standards, and they're not asking questions that you would ask if you were in a workplace. We allow things to take place, the sexism, the racism that we've seen so much in MUFON, and more allegations floating around now, or more statements made that raise some eyebrows, but it's like we don't hold people to the same standards that we would in the workplace. And I don't get that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, ufology doesn't have an HR department, which is maybe we should have. I don't know.
You ain't kidding.
But really, there's no place to report it. There's no group that's supposed to deal with this. Groups just, they do what they do, and every group is, I guess, they're supposed to police themselves, or they can do whatever they want. And it didn't seem like it was a problem for a long time, although maybe looking back, I'm thinking, yeah, it probably was a problem. It was just that nobody was making a big fuss about it. Nobody said anything. But lately, several years ago, something came out with one of the state directors that was just so egregious that, it came out on Facebook, and almost immediately, like within an hour, there was this huge dust up. A large number of people had commented and were telling everybody else about it, and that was a huge fuss. And that ended up getting into the mainstream news, which was interesting.
Yeah, that actually Newsweek wrote an article about that and some of the other things that took place inside MUFON, and that was really interesting to see that mainstream media coverage, which was unfortunate, because we want to make this subject should be taken seriously, and with the kinds of things that are taking place, and
of course that's what made the mainstream media was, hooray! Not that we're being taken seriously or that anybody's doing good work, but that it's rife with racism. Okay, right. Great. That's what we wanted everyone to know. Sure. Thanks a lot.
I know, it's never a dull moment. I know, and I'm really excited when we get back from break. I want to go back to the beginning of how you got involved in this, and then some of the people that you interviewed, and some of the things that you've seen and insight you have for younger women wanting to get into this, because it is such a fascinating subject, and it's so easy to get pulled down by that, and I struggle with that on a daily basis. It's like you just think, oh my Lord. So to have a ray of light like you, that sounds like, I don't know, like my grandma, that's the grandma. I don't know.
Okay, careful there.
Well, okay, good point. But it's just nice to have, and there's my cat who was saying hello, just so you know.
Oh, thank goodness. I was going to say, if you hear any loud noises in the background, I'm just going to apologize right now because my youngest cat gets like a toddler when I get on the phone or if I'm on the computer. She'll go in my other room and start knocking things over. So if you hear a crash, it's her.
You know, that sounds familiar, and I've got to tell you before we go to break, this is so funny. When I was first starting, I did my show, and my little kitty is blind, and so he starts crying. But I had this great idea that I was going to build my own sound booth, which in hindsight was, I mean, I don't know what I was thinking, and clearly I would never get hired for that job. But I had my art easels and different things strung up, and I had a strawberry shortcake blanket hanging over this thing, and I mean, it was not necessarily the prettiest of things, but this little baby Lewis, who's meowing in the background, snuck into my sound room, quote unquote, climbed up the blanket, and then the whole thing fell over. And I mean, it sounded like a car came through the window. And I mean, I remember Tina's like, "Oh my gosh, are you okay? What's happening?" And I think I was in shock, and I just kept going. But I wish we still had that, because that was one of the classic moments of my excellent sound engineering. So I'm glad that you've got a cat too. So
I have 3, and my oldest just turned 19 a couple of days ago.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So he's the head of the household. I think that makes him like 92 or something. I forgot. But.
Well, my poor little baby Lewis is 15, and he just lost his eyesight, and so it's been, one of those things. I love cats, and he's been a great addition to the family and things, and he's a great addition to the show sometimes, clearly. So
he is now.
I would say so, but we're going to take a break. And again, I want to thank you for coming on and talking about this and just having a real fun discussion about all of this. This is important. I want to thank all of my supporters out there. I've got people that are supporting the show with their hard-earned money, and I appreciate that, because I want to continue to keep the truth coming. We need that more than ever. And so thank you for your love and support. We will be back after this.
Stand by.
This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes. The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Now, broadcasting in digital HD radio.
In the shadows, a voice cries out. Evidence that you're not alone.
You said my name. What is your name?
Proof that the living and the dead coexist. Or do they? Every Wednesday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, join writer, producer, and paranormal investigator Greg Bakken on Ghost Box Radio as he explores, interviews, and investigates evidence alongside some of the best in the paranormal community and beyond.
6 people killed.
Ghost Box Radio, Wednesday nights exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network, because the dead don't sleep. Ghost Box Radio.
We interrupt to bring you this.
Would you like to advertise on KCOR Digital Radio Network?
This is what I'm talking about.
At a fraction of the cost of traditional radio advertising, why not?
Tell them the good news.
Whether you need to promote your next book, product, or service, we can customize a package for just about any budget.
Finally, there is hope for the hopeless.
Why limit yourself to a tiny local market when KCOR can brand you to the world?
Here's all you do.
Visit KCORradio.com or contact our sales department by email at saleskcorradio.com.
We want it now!
See the difference with us by letting us work for you.
This ain't reality TV!
The KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Are you ready to go?
It's showtime!
Here we go, world. You're listening to the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Broadcasting from the heart of Las Vegas, Nevada.
Their base is so large it has to draw most of its power from the nearby nuclear fusion plant.
The future of radio is here and now.
You're listening to UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts!
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to UFO Classified. Always happy to spend Friday evenings with you and see people in chat that are new faces. That's great. I want to thank my loyal supporters who have helped to keep me on the air. Mario, you are amazing. I really appreciate you. Doug, Bruce, there's so many great people out there. And I really feel, and I mean this, that we're in this together. And we understand that there is something that is genuine taking place. And we also are smart enough to say that the way disclosure is rolling out now at the hands of a few people who, work for the CIA, different things, that is not necessarily the disclosure that we deserve. And I will just say that right now. But anyway, I'm here tonight with a wonderful, intelligent, strong woman, Karyn Dolan. And we were talking a lot about, MUFON and some of the things that we've seen, how much we love the people that are involved, that are doing the real grassroots work, and then some of the questions with the racism and the lack of actually enforcing any sort of ethics, some of the other things, and hopefully that those are issues that will be addressed. But I think we all know at the end of the day that it won't, and eventually organizations like MUFON will disappear, but which could be okay. Anyway, on that note, and thank you for enduring my cat. He is now safely away in the other room and things, but oh, Lord have mercy. But Karyn, I wanted to ask you, because you've had an interesting journey in all of this, and I would love to, for my audience, just kind of go through how you first became involved and how that played out.
Okay, how I first became involved in what? Because
that's a very good question.
Of all of this.
That's a good. Let's start with just the UFO, the world of UFOs, ufology.
I actually was interested in paranormal topics my entire life. I didn't know anything about UFOs or even really hear about it until, when I was married. My husband got involved in it. It was an interest of his. And when I was married to Richard Dolan, who has written several books on the subject now. And the first I ever heard was when he came to me one day and said, I'm interested in UFOs and I've been looking into this and I have a lot of notes I've been taking on things I've been reading, and I kind of think I'd like to write a book about it. And I said, okay. My attitude was like, why are you being so tentative? Okay, what if it's something you're interested in? And he said, he was in a degree program at the time. He was earning his PhD at the University of Rochester, which he ended up leaving the program. He didn't ever finish that because he changed his mind about it. And it wasn't at all that he couldn't do the work, but we had a lot of conversations about this. He said, if I write a book on UFOs, nobody's going to hire me to be a college professor. And really, the reason to get a PhD is so you can teach. That's what he used to want to do. And so I said, well, do you care about teaching anymore? Do you want to teach or do you want to write this book? And he said, well, I think I really want to write this book. So I said, well, then write the book. I mean, you don't need the PhD if you don't want to teach. So why would you bang your head against the wall finishing this thing that you don't even want anymore? Because, if you finish a PhD and then somebody offers you a teaching job, you're going to feel obligated to take it. And then you're just going to be farther down this path that you don't want. I said, if this is something that you care about and you're interested in, then go for it. So he did. It was hard for him, I think. It was a really brave decision to go with what he really felt strongly about. And it's worked out well for him. I mean, he's very successful in his field now, and I think that he's happy doing it. He's certainly well respected in the field for his work. And he really took the ball and ran with it. I didn't have much to do with it at that time. Once he actually wrote his first book, we self-published it. He looked into getting other publishers, and then we decided that self-publishing was probably easier. And so I helped set up the business. I love doing kind of office-y kind of things. I'm really good at organizing stuff, and I love doing paperwork for some reason. And I know it's really bent of me, but I have this superpower, so I try to use it for good instead of evil. So yeah, I did our taxes, and I did our, got business licenses and shipping and all of this. I packed up all those. Anybody who bought Rich's first book, for the first 2 years, that I packed every freaking one of those things. So,
wow.
And anybody who emailed wanting to know where their book was, I answered them and said, it's on the way. I'm getting to it.
That's nice to have a partner like that, that's that supportive, because it's some of us are good at being out front. Some of us are better behind the scenes doing things and keeping things organized. And it's nice to have, that's a good, I bet that was, and obviously that was very successful to begin with, because he did come into this and pretty quickly became a key figure, which he still is in the subject today.
Yeah, well, he's very good at what he does. I mean, he is an excellent public speaker. He is a very thorough researcher, and he's a very good writer. And he spent quite a while. I mean, it took him 5 years. He spent 5 years putting together that first book. I know a lot of people write books a lot more quickly than that, but I bet very few people use as many footnotes as he does.
Right.
He's very, very meticulous about his research. He was very careful about everything he said. So, yeah.
So when he wrote this book, did you guys start getting into, how did you get into the quote unquote, scene? What was that like?
He actually was invited to speak at the UFO Congress in Laughlin. Bob Brown called him, and right about the time his first book came out, maybe it had been out for a month or two. I don't remember exactly, but it was very shortly after. I didn't know anybody in the field. I didn't know anything about conferences and things. But Bob Brown called Rich shortly before the conference was to be held, and I understand another speaker was not able to make it at the last minute, and somebody said, oh, there's this new guy who's got this book out, and it's really good. You should get him. So Bob called Rich, and Rich was able to go, and he spoke, and apparently everybody really liked what he had to say because they invited him back. And then word got around, and pretty soon everybody was inviting him to come and speak. And I didn't go with him that first time, but after that, I came along on a lot of the trips, which, again, I was really lucky that we were able to do that. I was a stay-at-home mom at the time. And our kids were born in 96 and 98, and then the book actually was published in 2000. So we had toddlers at home, and, we'd pop them off to grandma's. My mom was close by. I'd call her up and say, oh, Rich got invited to speak at a conference. And she'd say, when do I get the kids?
Oh,
awesome.
It sounds like a good grandmother.
Oh, she's amazing. Yeah. Best grandma. And it was so nice because the kids grew up being very close to grandma too. So that was really wonderful.
Awesome.
But that, it gave me the freedom to go and, again, do the organizing. I would be in charge of shipping the books out. I would often book our plane tickets. I would, take charge of making sure that the books got there and the table was set up and all of this, because, you've been a speaker at a conference when you're on all the time.
Mm-hmm.
it's really good to have another person there to kind of run the details for you. So I did that, and I sat in on everybody's talks, because when a speaker is speaking, no one's out buying books. So I would sit and just listen, and I got a crash course in everything everybody was saying. I got to meet some really wonderful people. A lot of them I consider friends now. I'm not sure where to go with this now.
So when you went to your first UFO conference, I mean, what were your initial thoughts about what you were seeing and what you were hearing?
I don't think I ever had the feeling like, oh, this is weird, I don't like this. Because I had been interested in paranormal topics my entire life, my whole attitude, my whole life has been, the world is such a weird and funky place, and there's so much out here that we cannot understand, and that's the cool stuff. You know, I've always been most interested in the things that make no sense. And when I was growing up, nobody really talked about this stuff, but my dad had books like Chariots of the Gods sitting around, and books on pyramids. And again, like, I never had a conversation with him, but I'd pick up the books and read them. I mean, I read Chariots of the Gods when I was, 14 or something, and I thought, oh, okay, cool, there's some more weird stuff. And I'd read articles about the pyramids and, all the numbers. I don't know how I feel about all the numbers that go along with the pyramids. Like, this side is exactly this long, and if you multiply that by 6.2, then it's the same as this other side of the pyramid. And I'm like, you come up with the 6.2, that doesn't really mean anything. Mm-hmm. But there are a lot of really cool correspondences, like the 3 pyramids at Giza are arranged exactly the same way as the 3 stars in the belt of Orion. One's a little bit off the main line, and they match exactly. So that kind of thing is pretty cool. And I actually got into reading Graham Hancock's books. Fingerprints of the Gods is one of my favorites.
I'll have to read that. I have not read that.
Oh my gosh, it's incredible. It's really wonderful. He talks about things like that, like the pyramids matching the stars, and gives evidence about the date of the building of the Sphinx, the age of the Sphinx. Mm-hmm. I think that was the book where he pointed out, and I might be remembering this wrong, I hope I'm not, but I believe it was Graham Hancock in that book who mentioned that there's evidence on the side of the Sphinx of water erosion, which, right now it's in the middle of a desert, so right. There's no way it could have that kind of thing. So you're saying it must have existed far enough back that the climate was different, and enough rain fell on it that it was able to erode that as much as it has been. And it's just really, really fascinating stuff. So long story short then, too late to make it short, I know. When Rich told me that he was interested in UFOs, I was just like, oh, okay. Another cool thing. I've never heard of this one before. What's this? And then I had this incredible opportunity to read so many books that Rich had been collecting to do his own research for his book. So we had them lying around the house all the time. I'd spend all day watching Teletubbies and Sesame Street with the kids, and then put them to bed, and I'd come down and start reading about alien abductions and things. Which, note to self, not a good thing to do just before you go to bed. So,
okay, that's the best thing I've heard in a long time. Thank you.
Yeah. My double life, right?
Yeah, exactly. Teletubbies, UFOs, I don't know.
Well, what's really funny is I ended up speaking at UFO conferences about comparing Teletubbies to UFOs.
Are you kidding?
I am not kidding. I have DVDs of myself speaking in Las Vegas. Ryan Wood gave me a chance to speak at his crash retrieval conference, of all things. And I did because I was watching these things in the morning, and I'm reading these books at night, and I'm seeing the same stuff. They're reminding me of each other. And so I went to conferences, and I'd say to people, anybody here think that the Teletubbies kind of are like aliens? And they didn't know what I was talking about because none of them were watching Teletubbies. And I'd go to the playground with my kids, and I'd say, do any of you like think Teletubbies are like aliens, and they didn't know what the aliens were like. So, so I was like the only one making these connections. So I put together a talk and I gave it in Las Vegas, and the whole room is like, "Oh my God, oh my God."
Oh my gosh. Okay, you just seriously made my year. That is so awesome.
Well,
I mean, and I get it because, I was the Teletubbies, the Boobas. Yeah, I would love to see that DVD. But
the thing is, the thing that they live in looks like a saucer, and they go inside it, and everything is like metal, but it's all smooth and curved, and there aren't like tables standing on legs. Everything is rounded, and it looks like the way people describe inside a spaceship, and they sleep in these little like pod things, and it's really, really creepy. And then they go out and they're like going up to kids and saying, "Hey, you want to go for a ride? Hey, you want to come and play?" And it's like,
okay.
No,
I know what I'm going to be doing later
say
tonight.
No.
I'm going to have a margarita and watch the Teletubbies. This could be.
Yeah.
I mean, geez, it's funny because I was, I grew up in the era of, HR Pup and stuff, and I go back. I was watching that, just for fun. I was showing my husband, this is what we watched in America, and it's like, wow, I actually watched that, and we wonder what happened to our generation. You've got Timmy the talking flute, and I don't know, but that is interesting with the way the media has been used to start to do whatever they're doing, and how many similarities there are. That is really interesting.
The thing actually with the Teletubbies, I mean, it was a little bit sinister, really. I mean, they made me think of the gray aliens, and that was like the one thing that was different, was that the Teletubbies themselves were sort of designed to be visually the opposite of skinny little gray aliens with big heads and big black eyes. These are they're really plush, kind of voluptuous, sort of fat things in really bright colors, but they still have those great big eyes. And, when you're reading abduction literature, it's always the eyes that's the important thing, these very hypnotic kind of eyes. And they had things like they had antenna on their head, like they communicated through those things. So I'm going, okay, here are these beings that they're trying to hide the fact that they're grays by making them bright colors instead of making them skinny little gray things. But where they live looks like a spaceship, and the way they behave is like they're aliens trying to interact with people. And the way they communicate with each other is like aliens and communicate telepathically. And it did actually kind of concern me that children were watching this. And I said, you know what, if a child has an abduction experience, and at the time I was reading literature that said, very small children like 4 and 5 were having them. So they wake up during the night and they see a gray alien with big black eyes that look like the Teletubby eyes. And they say, "Why don't you come out? You want to go for a ride with me?" They're going to say, "Oh yeah, it's Tinky Winky." Sure. No, that kind of creeped me out. And that was sort of the thrust of my presentation. I would show pictures of gray aliens and show pictures of Teletubbies and show all the similarities. But then when I got to that, literally a hush would fall over the room. And I heard one woman say, "Oh my God." And then it was very quiet. And that, that's what you want to hear when you're a speaker.
Right.
They're listening. So,
right.
Yeah.
It's interesting. And I mean, I had a child, that we grew up on, she was watching Dora the Explorer. That's another story that will take me the rest of my life to recover from that trauma. But, you do have like the Teletubbies and then the Boobas and some of these things. And you look back and even like now I will like open Netflix, queue for Netflix, and I'll see the way, all of the shows and the movies that are being produced, or the day after, or all these apocalyptic things, and July 4th or whatever, with where are the Men in Black, all these things where it's like we're being fed things, and I wonder how much of that is just propaganda. I think you brought up a great point, and that's a really interesting comparison.
Well, it's funny because, I was just recently listening to an interview that I did years ago with Elaine Douglas, who was, well, she used to be the MUFON director in Utah. And she spoke out very, very strongly against the idea of contacting aliens. For a while there was this attitude of, oh, there are space brothers and we're contactees, we're not abductees. They don't come and take us away against our will. Well, yeah, they kind of do. I mean, it's not like people can control this. So to my mind, that means you're always an abductee. But Elaine Douglas was very, very outspoken about it. She's like, no, this is not okay. They are not doing this for our benefit. And she also talked about mainstream media maybe trying to normalize elements of the abduction process. And I thought that was really interesting because until I did my talk on the Teletubbies and Booba, I hadn't heard anybody else talk about that. And she still is one of the few people I have ever heard come out that strongly and say, no, they're not here for our benefit. They're here for their benefit. And whatever they're doing, they can tell us anything, and we don't have the means to know when they're lying. We just don't. They're way smarter than we are. If they communicate telepathically, they can put any illusions they want in our heads. And we don't have the capability to see through that. So right there, they're manipulating us. And I'm sorry if this violates some listeners' idea that, they are our space brothers and they are here to help us.
And I have to just throw in there the benevolent, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Nordic space brothers.
Yeah.
That's a kind of a one to think about there for a minute.
But doesn't that tie right back into the racism that's inherent in the whole process, in this entire field?
Yep. Yeah. It is. It's fascinating. And that's the thing. It's so deep and so complex. And I mean, I look, because of Elaine, I really tried to and try to carry on some important parts of her work. I don't necessarily agree with her thoughts on some of these things. Right now, for me, I'm questioning, given what I've uncovered about Skinwalker Ranch and some of the people involved and the motivations behind the scene. I feel that is, the potential for testing non-lethal weapons or pulling off a big psyop, it is, to me, looks like that might unfortunately be more prevalent in all of this. And so I've been looking at that, and that's a completely disturbing aspect. I mean, are these extraterrestrials actually, is that our own, the powers that be coming in or doing things in the middle? It's just, there's so many questions about all of this. And I wanted to ask you, and I know we've got just a few minutes before break, but I mean, what is your feeling? Do you think that the threat narrative, like Elaine kind of felt towards the end of her life, do you think that we should be alarmed because of that potential threat?
I think that we should be cautious. And, I've had so many people come up to me at conferences and say, I've seen something, I've experienced something, what is it? And they thought I had all the answers because I'd been to a few conferences. I don't know. I mean, I understand people want answers. They're grasping at straws in most cases, if they're asking me, yeah. I think there's more than one group. I think it's entirely possible that some are benevolent and some are not. I think that we need to be very, very cautious. I think people are way too ready to make a decision based on very little information. And that's either way. I mean, I try very hard not to say, oh, they're all out to get us and they're all evil and, we shouldn't trust anybody. I just look at how they're behaving. I mean, they're sneaking into people's homes and taking them against their will in the middle of the night. This is not how somebody benevolent behaves. On the other hand, we have scientists who go out and trap wild animals and, maybe tag them, maybe vaccinate them, and then re-release them. they actually are acting in the best interest of the animals, and the animals can't understand it, so it must be scary. So I don't know. I mean, I guess that's it. I don't know. I just think we should be more cautious and more discerning, and not let somebody, because they've stood up on a stage at a conference once, tell us what to think. Looking at Stephen Greer's group, who tell everybody that, if you had a negative experience with an abduction, then it must have been a MILAB. It was a human doing it, because aliens are always nice. I don't know.
It is interesting. And and you're right, I think it's so important to be cautious of anything. And it's, for me, when I went public with all of this, and I was going to all these conferences and hearing things, and it was, as I step back now with a little more knowledge, and I look back at some of the people that were pushing narratives that are absolute garbage. And I don't know whether it's because they were doing it on purpose, because they needed to make money, because they were mentally ill. I mean, I think there is, unfortunately, you can see that in the field, which is when you're looking for answers to events that have been traumatizing or empowering, whatever. It's unfortunate that you have to, turn to a community where people are giving information that isn't necessarily in the best interest of that person.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, people just need to be more careful.
Absolutely. And I hear that music, so we're going to take the longer of our breaks. I'm here with Karyn Dolan tonight. I knew this was going to be a great conversation. Stick around. We will be back.
Listen very carefully. This is Houston. Say again, please.
Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at ufoclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.
The disc landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico, and the rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brizzell was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to the second half of UFO Classified. I want to thank all of you for tuning in, for supporting the show, for getting information out. This is a pivotal time. I say that so much, I'm like a broken record, but it really is. We have to stay on top of things. We have to understand that when we're turning to some of these Facebook groups for information, or even the mainstream media, that there is manipulation taking place. And when I said this at the opening of the show, we have to really step back and, okay, we've got this New York Times article that is dropping. Who are the players involved? What are their affiliations? Do they perhaps, are they potentially getting paid or working with some defense contractors that might want to get funding for something? We need to be asking these questions, because in my opinion, that is exactly what's happening. We're seeing this quote unquote disclosure when all it is another means to manipulate the public, to sweep up data, to get a lot of money for a handful of people. And so stay on top of it, my friends. It's really important. I am here tonight with a great woman. I wish that we were maybe in the same part of the world, the country. We could sit out on the lawn and socially distance and then have a glass of wine and talk about many, many things. And hopefully, not a lot of UFO stuff, because I know that you have a lot of other interests as well. You're such a dynamic person. But thank you for being here.
Well, thank you so much for asking me. I'm really enjoying this.
I know, I love it. It's so much fun, and I never in a million years would have thought on my show I would talk about the Teletubbies. That's why I love it. It's so much fun, and you brought up some great points. This is really interesting. But we were, talking about kind of the darker side to some of the things that could potentially be going on with regard to abductions. And I know you interviewed Elaine Douglas on your podcast, The Paranormal Radio. On Paranormal Radio, it was Through the Keyhole, and you can find those out there now, and I'll post some links. But Elaine was of the mindset that this is no good, that we should be very concerned, and there are people out there that feel that as well. And it is an interesting thing, because I think for me, I know that I've had personal experiences over my lifetime, and none of them, not none of them. I've had a couple things that have thrown me back a bit, but I don't feel that any of them were necessarily harmful. And so I guess it's just all about our perceptions and what we're exposed to. I want to ask, because I've got Mario in the group wants me to ask you if you had any paranormal experiences in your childhood or at any point in your life.
Yes. I've had several different things. A couple of experiences were just an odd, brief happening that I could never explain, but was actually pretty weird. Not like a story with an arc and closure and everything, but like one time I was walking into the bathroom, and the mirror over the sink was to my left. And as I walked in, I turned and looked at the mirror, and I saw my face in profile. I don't know how that happens. How do you look directly at a mirror and you see your face from the side? And I stood very still for about a minute and a half, I think, looking at it, because I felt like if I turned my face away, if I looked away, I was going to lose it. I would lose that image. If I looked back, it wouldn't still be there. So I was looking at the mirror, looking at my face sideways in the mirror, and trying to think what is behind me that could be creating this optical illusion that I'm looking at my own profile as I am facing this mirror directly. And I couldn't think of anything. There was nothing. It was just too perfectly clear. And I finally did turn around and look behind me, and I looked back, and then I saw my face looking straight at the mirror again. I don't know how to explain that. I've heard a few other people mention that they've had similar experiences, and nobody knows how it happens. It's kind of a time slip. I don't know. It was only off by a few seconds. Another time, when I was a kid, actually, I thought I had a dream that I saw a light in the field behind my house, and that I went out to look at it, and I didn't remember very much of what happened, just that I went out to look at this very bright light. And it was just sort of this odd thing that I never really thought too much about. But then years later, after Rich was starting to write his book and he was talking with a lot of people, I think I mentioned he was writing resumes as a day job while he was working on his book. And so we had a lot of people coming in to have their resume done, and then they'd see his UFO books and they'd start talking about UFOs. And 9 times out of 10, they would tell him their story, because practically everybody has a story. One of the people that he talked to came from my hometown, it's a suburb not too far from Rochester. And he had a stepdaughter who turned out to have been a classmate of mine in high school. And he described one night that she was sleepwalking and she went outside, and he went outside after her to bring her back in, and they both saw a really bright light in the sky. And the direction of it and the date when he said this happened, I think they saw the same thing I did. And so that was really weird, because then for me, I kind of feel like my stomach is dropping out just thinking about this, because suddenly it wasn't a dream. That was a thing that really happened. And there was somebody else who experienced the same thing that I did. And then I started wondering, what am I not remembering? What else was there? Because all I remembered was going out and seeing it and then being back in my bed in the morning. So...
And isn't that interesting? I mean, it's interesting because I have, you say that, and I had an experience in my childhood, as well. And I look back on that, it was as vivid as day. I'll never forget it. And I look back on that and I just think, okay, what was that? And so it sounds like for both of us, we've had a life where we've had these interesting experiences, and then you forget about them, or something like looking at books or hearing somebody talk about something kind of jogs your memory, and then it brings it back up. But all of it is fascinating. And for me, I know lately I've been labeled a skeptic, and I guess that's a badge of honor. I guess
I
because
was always labeled too gullible. People always said I was too gullible because I would listen to anybody. So, okay.
I will tell you what, it's a learning process. And I think, we all go through our things, but I mean, there's no doubt that there's something taking place. I don't know what it is. It could be a whole host of things, but it's fascinating to me to see how people put their own spin on things and manipulate things. And I definitely think with regard to the media and things like that, there's a lot of propaganda going on. And you were mentioning on the break, and this is a really interesting story, and I wish I would like you to share that. You said that you would, so this is cool. But you were talking about a person that came in to get a resume written that had a conversation with your ex-husband. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. As I mentioned, when people would come in to have their resumes done, and they would sit in Rich's office, and he had all of his UFO books that he was using for research when he was writing his first book. And a lot of people had experiences of their own, or they had questions, and so they'd bring it up. And one young man, when I got this story, was after the appointment was finished. The young man had left, and Rich would come up to the kitchen and get a cup of coffee, and when he had a break, we'd chat, or he'd tell me something interesting or whatever. So this one time he came up and he said this young man who I was just meeting with, who just left, was in the military. I think he said he'd been in the Army. I don't remember which branch. I think it was the Army. But he said, he told me a really odd story, and I don't quite know if I should believe it. I don't know if I do believe it, because it doesn't really make sense. And he said this young man told me that he and several other guys in his unit were sort of handpicked, rounded up, and taken into a room and shown this movie that was like an alien autopsy. And I'm thinking, well, you've told me about the alien autopsy video, so that's a thing. So where's the problem here? And he said, well, an odd thing is, he described the video, and I was asking him to tell me about it. And he told me a lot of details, and it's not, there are details in there that make me feel that it's not the real one that we've talked about. There's an alien autopsy video going around that seems to be real, but this had some details that were different. And he said, but I don't know why he would tell me that. And I asked the guy, well, so then what happened after that? And he said, nothing. It was just such a weird one-off kind of experience, and it never went anywhere, and he didn't know why. The young man who told the story didn't know why it happened. And Rich is thinking, well, I think he might have just been making something up just because he knows I'm interested in UFOs, and because he got the details wrong in the movie. I'm not sure it happened. And I said, well, I bet it did, because it sounds to me like his commanding officer maybe handpicked a few people and then showed him a test video that was not the real one, because you don't want to give away the real one, but gave him a test one that had a few details that were wrong, so they have deniability, and then waited to see if they talked about it. And this guy clearly did talk about it. I mean, he's telling the guy who's writing his resume, he probably told everybody about it. So he didn't ever hear any more because he was out of the program, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, if I were his CO and I was handed this actual real video and said, okay, we're going to need this many people to, do whatever it is we're going to do to keep this under wraps, I need you to handpick some people that we can trust. That would have been my first test right there. And I think he was tested and he failed, and that's why it never went anyplace after that for him. And I don't know. I think Rich did put that in the book. I can't remember now. But it was when he was writing his first book. So if it's in one of them, it would be in that one.
And it's really interesting to see this kind of brings to mind some of the documents that are currently floating around and how they're given to people, or kind of maybe seated. They're trying to see where the information flow is going and different things like that, which definitely, you always wonder. And I have to ask you, when you started seeing when he became more prominent in the field, did you ever see people that kind of popped up that raised your hackles a little bit?
Yeah, when we were at conferences, I met one person in particular, and I don't know. I mean, we're naming names?
Whatever you feel comfortable.
Well, when I first met John Alexander, I saw him across a crowded room at a conference. It was probably in Laughlin, and I think it was at one of those meet and greet things. And I didn't know who he was. I didn't even know his name. But I saw a man standing across the room, and he kind of gave me the creeps for some reason. I couldn't quite put my finger on why. And I remember asking Rich who that was. And he said, oh, that's John Alexander. And I'm like, should I know that name? Because I hadn't heard of him at the time. And Rich said, I said, what's his thing? What would I know him for? And he said, non-lethal weapons. And I was like, what's that? He said, well, using non-lethal ways to compel people to give up information. I'm like, oh, torture. Good. Okay.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right.
So I'm going to be outside. Okay. I'm just like, and it wasn't even before I knew that. It wasn't because Rich said that. I was already kind of heading for the door. I did not want to be in the room with this guy. Sometimes you just get a vibe, and his vibration and mine were not working well together. And I know that sounds really hippie and woo-woo, and I just didn't want to be in the room with him. And the weird thing was then, because the conference takes several days, and that was the first night, I saw him again the next day. And I was really surprised to see that he had blue eyes, because I could have sworn when I met him, his eyes were black. In fact, that was one of the things I thought I was overreacting. It wasn't his vibration or anything. It was just that he had these really dark eyes that looked like a shark, and it was creeping me out. And I thought, it's just that. But it wasn't that, because he actually had blue eyes, and I don't know why I saw them as black when I first met him. And let me just say, I do not consider myself to be a psychic. I think everybody has some ability to sense things. And I have spent a lot of years trying to become more sensitive. I've done, some meditation and that kind of thing. But I am not in any way, I don't generally walk into a room and get all kinds of psychic impressions. This is really rare for me. But yeah, that was really, really strong. And I just have always, in my mind, it was explained by what he does. Right. I don't know what kind of person you'd have to be to have a job like that, to do that every day to people. I couldn't. And so our energy just does not match at all, to the point that I can't be in a room with him. I don't know. I mean, his name came up for consideration once when I was with the UFO Congress. We were talking about which speakers to invite. And I remember being asked, we were discussing, should we invite John Alexander? And some people were saying, yeah, we got to get him. And some people were like, oh, no, I don't agree with what he says. And I argued to bring him because I said, what it's about is, do people want to hear what he has to say? And a lot of people want to hear what he has to say about a lot of different things. So, yes, we should bring him in. And we did. So it's not, I wasn't trying to kill his career or anything like I could. But I just, I asked that I not be the person to put his mic on and get him set up and on stage. I don't know.
I have to say that it is definitely that's interesting, and it's funny because I interviewed Dr. Angela Thompson-Smith a few weeks ago, and she worked with Bigelow before the NIDS days and different things, and she was talking about Bigelow paid for a radio show, Area 2000, and they brought in Howe and Knapp and Art Bell and different people. I mean, the people that we all know now, but he paid for this show that ran for about 6 months before Coast to Coast and everything. And the first show, they brought on John Alexander, and the topic was UFOs and non-lethal weapons. Now, why that doesn't raise people's alarm bells, I'm not quite sure. I mean, I think it's really interesting that you can have, for decades, those things thrown out there, like we've seen by people that were involved in the former, the Skinwalker Ranch narrative back then. It's like, oh, just those non-lethals. Oh, no worry about that, and things. And it's such a strange mix, but I think it's something that people need to be aware of and kind of question. So that's good that you had that initial gut response.
Yeah, I was very surprised by it because that doesn't happen to me a lot. I don't know. It's good that it did. Yeah, I'm glad I had that kind of warning system. Sometimes I wish I had it more.
Right. Yep. I do as well. I mean, I think both you and I are pretty trusting and kind-hearted people, and it is you get sucked into things, and I've definitely gone down. I've trusted people that I shouldn't have because I that's the way I am, but I've learned a lot of lessons, and it is a learning process for both of us. I have to ask you, we were going to get ready to go to break, but did you remember when, was there a point in time when you were with your ex-husband that like Kit Green or Hal Puthoff came into the picture, or Bigelow?
Hal Puthoff is the only one that I met. And I never met the other two. I know their names. I don't remember a whole lot about them. Kit Green, for some reason, kind of makes me feel like I should remember something, a reason to be concerned about that one, but I don't remember what it was. But I went to Texas with Rich very early on, and when he met Hal Puthoff, and I actually was not privy to their meeting when they actually really discussed. I guess Hal gave Rich some fairly intense information, a lot of things that Rich wouldn't even tell me later because he said he promised not to. But he did say, I remember him coming back to the hotel room where I was waiting for him, and he seemed a little bit shaken, and he said, it's real. This stuff is really real. And this was after his book had come out. I mean, his book was a history of reports of UFO sightings and the government's response to them. So it was all very documented that people were seeing things and people were responding and reacting to them. But you could say that there wasn't actually proof that something extraterrestrial was happening in Rich's first book. And I think after he spoke with Hal Puthoff, I know after he came and told me, we both just kind of sat down, like our legs wouldn't support us. We both sat down in that hotel room and just said, oh my God, it really is real. And it was like, and I remember thinking, this is so strange because He'd spent years writing this book. We're here because he's well known, because he wrote a book about UFOs. You'd think I'd have come to terms with it already. But it was always like people talking about this theoretical thing, and it was always sort of fun, like the pyramid thing, isn't this cool? And all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, there really are other beings from someplace else. They're real and they're here. And this changes everything. And I don't know yet how.
And then that is interesting. Do you know if it was it Hal specifically that invited him to Austin?
I think Hal did invite him. I know that, I was there because it was kind of tied to a conference we'd been attending. I think we maybe had been to a conference in California, and then we went to Texas and spent a day or two so that they could meet and talk, and then we came home from there.
Interesting. And we've got to go to break, but I want to kind of finish up on this when we get back from break. This is really, really interesting, and it always is, it kind of leaves my jaw hanging open. Yeah. You hear about the same people over and over again. So I'm here with Karyn Dolan. Thank you so much for being here, Karyn. I love talking to you. Thank you for all of my wonderful supporters out there. We will be back after this break.
Stand by.
This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes. The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Hello, KCOR listeners. Lorian Fenton here from the Fenton Files to tell you how to watch UFOCon 2020, which was held right before the virus scare in Shelter-in-Place. It was a conference like no other, so don't miss out on the specially priced on-demand replay of what is already the most talked about conference of 2020. Visit UFOCon2020.com. That's UFOCon2020.com.
1 million miles till midnight. A story of timelines, artificial worlds, simulated races, and the galactic imprint, and the destiny of a blue world called Earth. 1 million miles till midnight, written by Solaris Blue Raven, is a journey through the mind's eye, which allows the reader to surf a wave of technological and multidimensional intellect, revealing a bridge between conscious design and the truth. A multidimensional bleed-through awakens the world of artificial intelligence to set sail into the frontiers of a vast multiverse, morphing planets and terraforming ascended worlds beyond the linear programs of a fated race. 1 million miles till midnight will awaken, inspire, prepare and enlighten one to the many multidimensional states of consciousness and worlds we reside in. With every cell and atom, we are this truth and multiverse. 1 million miles till midnight. Written by Solaris Blue Raven. Available now at Amazon.com. Don't wait. Get your copy today.
One of the planet's most powerful antioxidant products is here for you to enjoy. Chaga mushroom tea. This tea has been used as a potent natural health solution for thousands of years. In fact, the Chinese call it king of the herbs. The health value alone is worth a look, as Chaga mushroom tea packs a punch with pure vitality and smooth energy. It's 100% wild crafted, safe, and effective. Get it now at arcticchaga.com. That's ARCTICCHAGA.com. Or call 916-969-2678. That's 916-969-2678. Chaga Mushroom Tea.
Chaga Mushroom Tea.
Order your supply today.
1, 2, 3, 4.
To the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
I love the way it sounds.
Love the music. Oh, I listen to.
The future of radio is here and now.
You're listening to
You're listening to
UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts.
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to the last segment of UFO Classified. I want to thank my listeners from all over the world. It has been so cool to see people from Germany, Australia, Brazil, all over reaching out to me. People are very excited about things that are taking place, and they understand the need to be cautious and ask questions about the way things are rolling out with this quote-unquote disclosure movement. Yeah, right. Anyway, on that note, I want to just also thank people like Mario, who has been the biggest rock for my show. I really appreciate your support. I couldn't have done this without you. If you want to help support the show, go to ufoclassified.com and become a Patreon. I appreciate it. You can also go to KCOR as well. I believe that there has to be integrity in this, and I researched this. I spend more time on this than a full-time job, and I've also done as much as I can, and I'm continuing to do more to try to preserve archives and the work of other people so we can learn from that and move forward and have fresh perspectives on things and not have to learn the same stuff. And anyway, so thank you for your support. I'm here with Karyn Dolan, who is just like I said, a breath of fresh air. I love it. It is so. It's just nice to talk to a woman. So, it's like I love it because we know this field it's a male dominated field that makes it very exciting sometimes. But I really appreciate that. I want to just briefly go back to the fact that you were mentioning your visit to Austin after you'd been to a conference, and you both were invited there, and then Richard had kind of a closed door meeting with Hal. And do you remember who else was there?
I was never aware of anyone else who was there. I think it was just the two of them.
Interesting. And I have to say that I had my own little trip to Earth Tech in Austin as well. So it always makes life exciting. And it's been funny for me to see the same people over and over again that are, pulling people in or inserting narratives. Will these people ever actually come out with proof, or is this perhaps just an attempt by them to steer a narrative to garner funding? I mean, there's so many questions I have now, and I have to ask you, too, did you ever see anybody else that just over the years that kind of approached you both that you've just kind of sat back and said, what is the agenda on this?
Oh, I feel like there probably were, and I don't remember specifically. I'm sorry. I've been away from this for such a long time.
Good.
It's really fun reminiscing about this, and I just haven't. I guess mostly I focus on the more positive people that I've met. If somebody gives me a weird feeling, I avoid them if I can, but I don't really think about it too much.
That's good.
I'm more likely to think about meeting people like, say, Travis Walton, who I think is one of the most amazing, most wonderful people in the world. And I do remember one time speaking at a conference where he was also a speaker in New Jersey, I think it was. And after the conference ended, he and I also were staying at the same place. It was at the home of one of the volunteers who was helping to put things on. And he was kind of wound up and just felt like talking, I guess. And the volunteers were exhausted because they had been just running off their feet all day. So they went to bed. And but Travis felt like staying up, so I did. And my daughter was actually there with me. She came along, and the three of us sat up in the living room and were just talking really late into the evening. And I just I got a chance to get to know him as a person, and he's just such a wonderful guy. And he told me things that I had never known about him before, like that I didn't know that he was an EMT. And he said that he had always wanted to be a doctor, and he knew he couldn't after this happened. He's like, what med school is going to take me? What hospital is ever going to hire me as a doctor with this, very, very widely publicized, I was abducted by aliens thing in my background? He's like, I'm never going to get a job doing what I really want to do. So he became an EMT because he felt that was as close as he could get. And I just, I've never forgotten that. That was just such a poignant story about how this kind of thing can affect people's lives. And I think of that every time I see something in the news or somebody comes out with they talk about their experience, and then other people say, oh, that didn't just happen. That didn't really happen. They're just saying it. They just want to get attention. They just want the notoriety. They just want to sell their story. They're going to make money off it. Okay, first of all, nobody makes money off UFO stories. Okay, there's just nobody does that.
Well,
okay,
the
Stan
fallout,
Friedman.
That's the thing.
Exactly. Stan Friedman made a really good living as a speaker because he was an excellent speaker. He was really intelligent and funny and witty and warm and just fantastic. And he was very businesslike about selling his books. And so he made it work. Most people do not. There is not money in this field. People who do it don't do it to get rich. And yes, anybody who comes out with their personal experience, I've had a lot of experiences that I could have talked about tonight when you've asked me questions. And I hesitated because I'm kind of building a new life here, and I'm not sure how well they'll go over. So and my kids are adults now, and I'm not sure that I want them hearing everything that I could say.
Right.
When they were little and I knew they weren't listening to my talks or they weren't listening to my radio interviews, it was different. And even then there's a lot of stuff that I just don't talk about, and I know I probably won't. There is nothing good to come from talking about this except in being there for other people who have also gone through it, because then they know they're not crazy. And I've had people come up to me at conferences and tell me about what happened to them and say, tell me I'm crazy. Tell me I lost my mind. I'm imagining this. Please tell me this didn't really happen. And I can't, because I've heard so many other people tell me exactly the same things.
And that's what I appreciate about you. It's like you see the turmoil that people go through, and this is very genuine, and it's like we are. I can't tell you how many, just like you, it's like people will come up, or I'll have conversations on the phone or different things with people that have been affected by this one way or another, and they don't have a support system, and even when they turn to the UFO community, they're not getting the support system that they need, and that is so. So how do we make that better? What do we do to create a positive change in that regard? And do you think that we can? Do you think this field can be saved from itself?
Yes, absolutely. I think while there's life, there's hope. Yes. Certain organizations maybe can't be saved. I don't know. I'm not concerned about organizations, honestly. But there are always people. There are people who have gone through traumatic experiences, and they will always reach out. And there are always people who are willing to hold out a hand to them. Mary Lamb is a wonderful, wonderful woman who, she led some of the abductee panels at the Laughlin UFO conference. And she's fantastic. She's a sweetheart. And she's there for people. Linda Moulton Howe. I know she's been kind of controversial. And honestly, I have not kept up with everything that she's been involved in. But I'll tell you, when I was at a very, very difficult time in my life, she dropped everything and she was right there for me. And she will always have a special place in my heart because of that, because she was willing to interact with me on a personal level at a time when I really, really needed that. And you know what? People will sometimes be down on her and her research because they say that she takes on things that are implausible or she doesn't have good evidence for things. I mean, to my mind, she jumps in with both feet. If she hears about something, she'll go after it. And maybe it'll turn out that, no, it's not supportable. But she'll go in and look at it and find out. Whereas a lot of people would just avoid it because, I don't know if I want to put my reputation on the line by taking on this case. I don't know. She does not worry about that. I mean, if she thinks there might be merit, she'll jump in and she'll check it out. And if it doesn't stand up, then she'll tell everybody, no, I looked into that. It turned out to be a piece of crap. And I mean, how can you not respect that? She's amazing.
That's good to hear because, I know that there are lots of questions that surround everybody in the field. And for me, when I look at people, who have been associated with Bigelow over the decades, I have, for me personally, given everything I've gone through with my husband and that kind of discovery process, that raises alarm bells to me. And so that's a nice story from you about her. And I have to ask you, what, when you look at women in the field that inspire you other than Linda or, Barbara, I mean, are there other women that you really think?
Okay, thank you so much for correcting her name. I think I said Mary Lamb, and it Barbara. You're right, Barbara Lamb. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, Barbara. Thank you.
Absolutely, and I mean, because there are women out there that have done, like Ann Druffel. I mean, I did a show that was dedicated to her. I mean, she was another amazing woman. Phyllis Budinger. Who else do you hold in high regard?
I'm glad you mentioned Ann Druffel. I did want to mention her. I know she recently passed, and I got to meet her in Roswell many, many years ago, and she was just a wonderful, wonderful woman. I never got to know her as well as I would have liked. I didn't get much opportunity to speak with her. I mean, she's not really a researcher, but I think we should mention, by the way, Terry Brown, who was instrumental in putting together the whole Laughlin UFO Congress. I mean, she was involved in that for many, many years, and she built that up to what it was. And her family continued on with it before it changed hands, and now it's, I think it was sold off to, Open Minds, and moved to Phoenix, but the whole time it was in Laughlin. Bob and Terry Brown built that. And it really was her baby and her vision that created that. And the Laughlin conference that was a week long. And maybe like 10 days, because it was 2 weekends and the full week in between. And just the number of people they brought in as speakers, and they had the film festival going there. As far as I know, they might have been the first ones to do that. They really were instrumental in bringing a lot of people into the field, bringing this information to the public, and giving an awful lot of researchers a forum, a way to bring their research out and to share it with the public. I mean, that's where Rich got his start. So I just can't say enough about her. But you're right. I mean, sitting here trying to think, okay, who are some female researchers? It's really terrible that there aren't more names that come to mind. There are, proportionately, there are so few. I mean, Paola Harris also does some excellent work, bringing a lot of really terrific people together. And she's kind of moved more into the consciousness field. But she's got her Laughlin conference going that's been going for several years now, and she's doing a great job with that.
Well, and I wanted to say Carla Turner too,
yes.
Because Greg, my friend Greg Bishop is in chat, and he mentioned her, and that she was. I wish I would have had the opportunity to meet her, because
I never met her either.
Way too early, like Elaine and a few other people, and there were. and are some great women involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny when you asked me, I was kind of thinking back over my memories of conferences and people I've met. And so Carla Turner's name didn't come up because I never met her. But just thinking back over the conferences. And again, I mean, this comes back to MUFON, and they never have female speakers, or they have so few. How many years have they had their international symposium where they don't have any female speakers at all? Or maybe they have one or two, and then they'll have 10 men speaking.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And in fact, one year I think they had a theme. It was something about, the dawning of a new era in research, and they didn't have a single female speaker that year. And I thought, gosh, is this going to be the new era? No.
Well, and I will say that there's, the new Skinwalker Ranch TV show, and that's been one of the complaints there. Is you look at the meeting room and where they're putting together the EMF detectors and coffee cans and having these conversations, and there are no women there, and then they'll just bring in women here and there and things, and that's really unfortunate because there is a whole new group of people, and I've been in contact. I've had a lot of women reach out to me that needed a support system or wanted to support me and move through all of this, and that's been a really cool thing to see. Mm-hmm. And Susan Demeter. Thank you, Greg. Again, Greg is on top of it. He's telling us about
awesome.
It. Yes, Susan is fantastic, and Ira, my dear friend. I mean, there are some cool events. See, now it's all flowing for me right here.
Well, see, now you're coming out with names of people I'd never met and people I hadn't heard of, because I have been out of this for such a long time. I was just thinking earlier today about researchers I have known and have met, and how many of the ones I've known actually have passed away already. So, I was thinking like Stan Friedman and Ted Phillips, Bud Hopkins, John Mack, Ann Druffel. I'm just, wow. So, yeah, a lot. More people who are in the field now than I do.
Well, you know what? I'm going to have to introduce you to a couple of these women that I just mentioned, Susan and Ira. I mean, they are both beautiful. They've been on the show before. You would really, really like them. So
I'd love to meet them.
Yeah, make that happen. They're very cool, strong, independent women, and we need more of that in this field, absolutely, for sure, because I think there obviously comes a time when the good old boys club is not doing what they need to do. We've seen this field for, decades, and we've not made any advancements. I'm not sure why that would be, but we need women in there to kind of stir it up.
Yeah, that's what I keep thinking of. I mean, in any other discipline, in really anything else, after this many years, I mean, I was in it 20 years ago. And not that I have made contributions, but over that time, you'd think somebody would have. We shouldn't still be arguing over whether there's a field or not, but there are still a lot of people who don't believe that there is any such thing as UFOs. Why are we not well past that by now? I mean, what's everybody been doing? And the UFOs themselves have been around. I mean, if you believe ancient aliens, they've been around for thousands of years. But even failing that, I mean, we've got newspaper stories about them being seen in the 1800s, before we had planes in the sky. So why now, 130 years later, why do we still not believe they even exist?
I think because the United States government has done such a great job of steering the narrative and putting out disinformation and infiltrating UFO organizations and researchers to lead them astray. They've done, I mean, it's been brilliant. And when you go to other countries, you don't see this kind of circus. And that's unfortunate because it's unfortunate for you, for people that are having profound experiences, for people that want to learn more. And I think at some point in time, for me, the spotlight needs to be kind of shined on people that have been steering the narrative decade after decade and have not produced. And these are the same people that are involved with To the Stars Academy now. And so it's interesting. And like I said, I'm so glad that you are living your life, and it is, you don't have to deal with this, because someday, I'm telling you, some days it's like, am I in a bad episode of Dynasty? You know, I was at Falcon Crest. I don't know. Days of Our Lives. I'm dating myself, but.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because in some sense, you know, when I kind of left the field, I mean, it was around the time of my divorce. I had a lot of things going on. You know, I had to find a new place to live, get a job, get my finances all straightened out. I had my hands full. But also I was starting to feel like, you know, I'd look around. I was talking to these really amazing guests on my show. I loved that. You know, I'd read a book about something that was really fun and really interesting, and I'd think, wow, I'd love to talk to this person some more. I'd shoot them an email, and they'd say, yeah, I'll come talk to you. And we'd have a great conversation for like 2 hours, and it was so much fun. And I never got paid to do it, but it was fine. You know, I was having a blast, and I was learning so much. And after a while, I looked around, and it was like the same guests were going from show to show to show to show, and we were all kind of asking them the same questions. And I thought, I mean, this is really great material, but there's nothing that I'm contributing that all these other, you know, 8 or 9 or 10 people who are colleagues of mine, you know, they got this. They're all doing it. And I didn't feel like I was really contributing anything to the field. And then looking at ufology, it's like, you know, they're still arguing over lights in the sky. So it's kind of like you said, you know, you're watching a soap opera, and it's sort of like, I want to go get a snack, and, you know, nothing's happening right now. I'm not going to miss anything if I leave for a bit. So I left for a bit. And I haven't missed anything, you know, in a way. I mean, we're coming back. They're still having the same arguments about, are there lights in the sky? Okay. So, and I hate that, because, you know, people like you're doing this amazing work. You're coming out with all this stuff. And then what happens to it? The general public is still sitting around saying, oh, I don't believe in UFOs. Well, are you looking? You know, are you like opening a book? But yeah, you're right. I mean, sure, Ancient Aliens is out there. There's a lot of good information. There's a lot of speculation. I love watching Ancient Aliens because I love the photography. I love hearing about places, you know, pyramids in weird parts of the world that I never knew were there. You know, they come up with really cool stuff. Then when they start saying, of course, aliens must have built this, you know, half the time I check out. But I love watching it.
Well, I mean, the one thing about that show is it did open people's minds to possibilities, whether they're right or not. I mean, it's entertainment, and there are, at the end of the day, there are some incredible mysteries in the world.
Yes,
that should be a fun process to look at, and that's, you know, I think it's sometimes when you get involved in this for too long, you start seeing the negativity of it all. And there is a lot of negative, but that's, you know, you have to ground yourself and say, okay, I want to go out there and look up in the sky and think of all these beautiful possibilities, and think of ways to empower myself and to hold the experiences that I've had dear to my heart, and to never let anybody else tell me what I experienced. And I think that's really important.
Yes, very. And that was beautifully put. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, no, thank you. And thanks for being here. This has been so much fun to talk to you. And I think the world of you. You are funny and intelligent, and I know that you haven't, you know, this is the first show that you've done in a long time, and I appreciate you doing that and being comfortable enough with me to do that.
Oh, well, thank you so much for asking me. I have had such a good time tonight. And I feel like there were a lot of things we wanted to talk about that we didn't get to. So, but you know, we had so much fun. Time just flies.
I know, and I will have to, you know, maybe sometime I can have you back, and you can ask that. I've got one more question. Hopefully, we've got time. But do you see yourself coming back to this, or are you just happy where you're at?
I would be open to coming back to it. I actually, honestly, have missed being on the air, and I've been talking with my producer, and he keeps saying, when you want to come back on, just say the word, and I've got a time slot for you. So
awesome!
I don't know. I think it would be really fun to do it again. I still kind of struggle with that. Do I have something to contribute that everyone else isn't already doing?
Yes, you do. Trust me. And thank you so much for being here. What a great show. You guys stay safe out there. Have a wonderful evening. Stick around for Willie Miranda, and I will catch you next week.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at ufoclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just